All right, section 10.1 talks about the rectangular coordinate system. And so what we're going to be doing here in the rectangular coordinate system is essentially what we have is we have two number lines. One of them is what we call the horizontal or the x-axis. The other one is what we call the vertical or the y-axis. And essentially what we've done here is we've taken sort of this plane or this piece of paper and we've cut it up into four pieces. This one here is what we call quadrant 1. We call this one here quadrant 2. Down here on the bottom left, we call that quadrant 3. And on the bottom right, we call that quadrant 4. And so what we're going to be doing here in 10.1 is we're going to be plotting points and we're going to be graphing lines. And so when we're plotting points, every point is always going to be written in the form x comma y. And what that means is that my first number is going to tell me how to move either to my left or right, and my second number is going to tell me how to move either up or down. So let's see if we can go ahead and do the first few problems here. It says plot the points on the graph and state which quadrant each point is in or on which axis each point lies. So let's take a look at our first problem A, which is a point 2, 3. So I'm always going to start here in the middle. This is my origin. That's where we're going to start off from. And since the first number is a positive 2, I'm going to move 1, 2 to my right. And since my second number is a positive 3, I'm going to move up 1, 2, 3. I'm going to mark that right there. And that's going to be my point A. Okay, let's try the second point. So my point B is a point negative 3, 5. Again, I'm going to start in the middle. I'm going to go to the left, 1, 2, 3. Since my second number is a positive 5, I'm going to move up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's going to be my point B. Now let's go ahead and do C. So C is my point 2, negative 4. So again, from the middle, I'm going to move to the right, 1, 2. If my second number is a negative 4, I need to move downward now, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's my point C. My point D is the point negative 6, negative 1. So again, from the middle, I need to move to my left 6 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then down 1 space. And that's my point D. Now, my point E has the first coordinate of 0. That means I'm not going to move to my left or my right, but I am going to move up 2 since my second number is a positive 2. And that's going to be my point E. And then finally, my point F is the point negative 4, 0. So I'll move to the left, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But since my second number is 0, I'm just going to stay right there, and that's going to be my point F. Okay, now the directions say state which quadrant each point is in or on which axis each point lies. So what I want to do here is I'm going to say, well, look, we have 4 quadrants, quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 3, and finally quadrant 4. So I'm going to look at see which points are in each quadrant. So point A is in quadrant 1, point B is in quadrant 2, point C is in quadrant 3, point D is in quadrant 4, but we also have the 2 axes. So we have our x-axis, and the point that's on the x-axis would be my point F. And then we also have the y-axis. And the point that's on my y-axis would be my point E. All right. So for the next part that I have here in 10.1, we're basically going to be going backwards. We have each of the points on our xy axis or on our coordinate plane, but we now want to find the coordinates of the points. Okay, so let me get my pen here. And we're going to find the coordinates of each point. So if you notice A is right in the middle. That would be the coordinates of the point 0, 0. If I look now at B, So B is right between 3 and 4, so that would tell me that's right at about 3.5. But since the point B doesn't go either up or down, then my second number would be 0. My point C is from the middle, it's at 3 to the right and 2 up. So that's going to be 3, 2. My point D is to the left 1 space and up 3. So that's going to be -1, 3. My point E is to the left 2 and then down 2. So that's going to be -2, -2. My point F is in the middle. We don't move left or right, so that tells me my first number is 0. And then I move down 1, so that would be -1. And my point G is from the middle, I move right 2 and down 1, so that's 2, -1. And we found the points, or the coordinates, excuse me, of each of those points. So what I want to do now, I'm going to scroll down here to the next problem. And it says, complete each ordered pair so that it's a solution of the given equation. Okay, so remember, I'm going to think about this here as sort of my first problem. I kind of have two problems here. So I'm going to call this part A. And remember, a point is always written in the form x, y. And the point that we have is we have a blank, and then we have -2. So what that's telling me is that I know that my number x, since it's a blank, I don't know what it is. But I do know that my number y, or my variable for y, is going to be -2. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my equation that I have right here, and everywhere I have the letter y, I'm going to plug in a -2, and I'm going to see if we can figure out what x is. So we're going to write x minus 4 times -2 equals 4. So when we multiply -4 times -2, that's going to give me a +8 equals 4. So now to solve for x, all I need to do is -8 on both sides, -8 on both sides. And we're going to come up with x equals, -4. So now I can write my answer as -4, 2. So I'm going to do that whole process all over again, but now I'm going to do it for this part here. So let me get a different color, and let's say, okay, B. So B, again, every point is written in the form x, y, and the point we have is 4, blank. So here we know that x is equal to 4, but we don't know what y is equal to. So I'm going to go ahead and take this same equation that we have right here, and everywhere I have the letter x, I'm going to put the number 4. So I'm going to write 4 minus 4y equals 4. I want to solve this equation for the letter y. So my first step is I'm going to -4 on both sides. That's going to leave me with a -4y equals 0. When we divide both sides by -4, we're going to come up with y equals 0. And so now I can write my point. We already knew that the x number was 4, and we just found the y number to be 0. Okay, so the next problem I have here in 10.1, very similar to what we just did. So again, I'm going to think about this as two problems. Let me get my pen again. All right, so I'm going to circle this one here. I'll say this is my problem A. Remember, every point is written in the form x, y. And since we have -8, blank, that's telling me that x is equal to -8. But I don't know what the letter y is. So I'm going to take my equation right here. Y equals 1 over 4. Now I'm going to plug in the number -8 for x. But because I have a fraction, I'm going to think of -8 as a fraction by thinking about it as -8 over 1. Okay, minus 3. So I'm going to multiply straight across. Oops. Give me a second here, guys. Okay. So let me go ahead and continue here. Sorry about that, little technical difficulty. Minus 3. So when we multiply straight across, 1 times -8 is -8. 4 times 1 is 4, minus 3. So that's going to give me negative 8 divided by 4 is negative 2 minus 3. That's going to leave us with negative 5. Okay, so that's telling me that my point is going to be negative 8 comma negative 5. Let me fix that a little bit. Looks a little messy there. And let's get our pen back. Negative 5. Okay. All right, so I'm going to do this problem all over again, but I want to use this point now. So let me carve myself out a little bit of space here. And okay, so again, every point's written in the form x comma y. My point is blank comma 1. So that's telling me that I don't know what the letter x is, but I do know that my number y is going to be 1. Okay, so let's see if we can figure this thing out. So I'm going to write a 1 equals 1 over 4 with an x minus 3. I need to get my x by itself, so I'm going to go ahead and add 3 to both sides. That's going to leave me with a 4 equals a 1 over 4 with an x. If you recall, the reciprocal of 1 over 4 would be 4 over 1, so I'm going to multiply here by 4 over 1. And I'm going to multiply here by 4, because it's the same thing as 4 over 1. So that's going to give me a 16. Now remember, these 4's here are going to cancel, and that's going to give me my x. So now that we found x equals 16, I'm going to go ahead and write out my point. So 16 comma, and y was already equal to 1. All right. I'm going to scroll down here. We're going to do the same thing here for this problem. It's just written slightly different, okay? It's written in a table form. But I'm going to think about this as 3 problems, A, B, and C. Okay, so for my part A, I know that x is equal to 0, but I don't know what y is equal to. So I'm going to write my point like this, 0 comma, and when we figured out what y is, we'll go ahead and put it in that spot. So I'm going to take my problem, which is right here, and I'm going to put 0 equals negative y plus 2. I need a minus 2 on both sides. So negative 2 equals, I can think of that negative y as a negative 1y. So when I go ahead and divide both sides by negative 1, we should come up with y is equal to 2. So I'm going to go ahead and put my 2 here, or if I want to, I can go ahead and put my 2 in there. Okay, let's do this all over again, but now I'm going to do my part B. So my part B says, I don't know what the letter x is, but we do know that y is equal to 0. So again, I'll write my point like this, comma 0. When we figure out what x is, we'll go ahead and put it in there. So I'm going to write x equals negative 0 plus 2. Remember, you can think about that as negative 1 times 0. Negative 1 times 0 is still 0, and 0 plus 2 is just 2. So I can put a 2 right here, or if I want to, I can put a 2 right there. All right. And finally, we have a part C. So let me get myself some room here. Okay, so my point C, I know that x equals negative 3. I don't know what y is. So I'm going to write my point like this, negative 3 comma, and then we'll figure out what we're going to put for y. So let's write negative 3 equals negative y plus 2. I'm going to go ahead and minus 2 on both sides. That's going to leave me with a negative 1y. Minus 3 minus 2 is a negative 5. Last step I need to do is divide both sides by negative 1. And negative 5 divided by negative 1 is a positive 5. So put my 5 here, my 5 here, and we're done. Okay, continuing here with 10.1, I have another problem very similar to what we just did. So again, I have my 3 parts, A, B, and C. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. In my point A, I know that x equals 0, but I don't know what y is. So I'm going to take my equation that we have right here, and everywhere we have the letter x, I'm going to put the number 0. So 0 plus 3y equals 6. Well, 0 plus 3y is still 3y equals 6. So when we divide both sides by 3, we come up with y is equal to 2. So I'm going to go ahead and write a 2 right here, and I'll write a 2 right there. Okay, let's do part B. So part B, we don't know what x is, but we do know that y is 0. So I'm going to go ahead and say, well, x plus 3 times 0 is equal to 6. So x plus 0 is equal to 6. Well, that just tells me that x is equal to 6. So I'll put a 6 right here and a 6 right there. All right, finally, in my part C, again, I don't know what x is, but we do know that y is 1. So we're going to take our equation, x plus 3 times 1 equals 6. So that's x plus 3 is equal to 6. When I minus 3 on both sides, we come up with x is equal to 3. So I'll put a 3 here and a 3 there. All right, so I hope you're seeing the pattern. Again, all I'm doing is I'm sort of substituting my values in and finding my missing variable. Okay, let's try this one here, and then I'll tell you what the next part we're going to do in terms of this little graph. Okay, so I'm going to kind of scroll down a little bit just to give myself a bit more room. Again, I'm going to have 3 parts. There's A, there's B, and there's C. Okay, so let's do part A. 0, comma, blank. So that means x is 0. So I'm going to write my equation. Y equals 1/3 times 0 plus 2. Well, 1/3 times 0 is still 0. And 0 plus 2, well, that's just 2. So I'll put a 2 right there. Okay, my point B is -3, comma, blank. Okay, so that means x is -3. So I'm going to write y equals 1/3. Since I'm plugging in a number that isn't 0, I want to go ahead and think about my number -3 as a fraction. I'm going to write it as -3/1 plus 2. Oops. Let me bring this down. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and write y equals, if I go straight across, 1 times -3 is -3/3 plus 2. -3 divided by +3 is a -1 plus 2. And finally, -1 plus 2 is 1. So I'll go ahead and write a 1 right there. All right, let me carve out some space so I can do my last part, part C. So in part C, I don't know what x is, but we do know that y is 0. Okay, so I'm going to write a 0 where I have my y. 0 equals 1/3 with an x plus 2. I need to go ahead and minus 2 on both sides. So that's going to leave me with a -2 equals 1/3 with an x. Now again, since I have this fraction here, 1/3, the reciprocal of 1/3 would be 3/1. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply this also by 3. So 3 times -2 would give me a -6 equals, well, this 3 and that 3 are going to cancel. That's just going to give me my x right there. So I'm going to go ahead and write a -6 right here. Now, the only thing I want to do now is I want to go ahead and plot my points. So again, if I want to find the first point here, 0, 2, remember that's telling me that my first number x is 0, so I'm not going to move to my left and I'm not going to move to my right, but I am going to move up to 2. So there's that point. My next point would be -3, comma 1. So I'm going to move to my left, 1, 2, 3, and then up to 1. And my last point, C, would be -6, comma 0. So I'm going to move to the left to 6, and I'm going to stay right there. And what I want you to notice, and this is what we're going to be doing in the rest of chapter 10, but all those points are lining up, right? We can draw a line. Let me see if I can do this since I'm doing this by hand. but you can see all my points kind of line up there, right? And that's basically what it is we'll be doing. All right, so this is the last problem I have here out of 10.1. And it says the cost in dollars, Y, I'm going to circle that real quick, oops, of producing X computer desks is given my equation Y equals 80X plus 5,000. It says complete the table. Okay, so again, just like we did before, these problems are going to be very similar. These are my three parts, A, B, and C. Okay, so let's see if we can't figure this out. I'm going to say that my part A is when X is equal to 100. And if my equation is Y equals 80, I'm now going to plug in 100 plus 5,000. So that's going to be 80 times 100 would be 8,000. And 8,000 plus 5,000 would give me 13,000. So I'm going to put 13,000 right there. Okay, let's try this all over again. Now this is going to be when X is equal to 200. So I'm going to write Y equals 80 times 200 plus 5,000. So 80 times 200 would actually give me 16,000 plus 5,000. Well, that actually adds up to 21,000. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right here. Okay. I'm going to scroll down a little bit just so I have a little bit more room. And I'm going to do part C. Part C is now saying, well, X is now equal to 300. So I'm going to go ahead and write this out. Y equals 80 times 300 plus 5,000. Well, 80 times 300 should actually give me 24,000 plus 5,000. Well, now that adds up to 29,000. So 29, 1, 2, 3. And we figured out each of those parts. So again, if you notice, it's very repetitive. I'm plugging my numbers in. Now, there is a part B. And part B says, find the number of desks that can be produced for 8,600. So it says, hint, find X when Y equals 8,600. So I'm going to write down my equation again. I'm going to give myself a little bit of room. My equation was Y equals 80X plus 5,000. And when I look at my hint, I'm going to scroll back up to get to my hint. It's telling me find X when Y equals 8,600. So where the Y used to be, I'm going to put my number, 8,600 equals 80X plus 5,000. To solve for X, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 5,000. So that's going to give me 3,600 equals 80X. I need to divide both sides by 80. And let me grab my calculator real quick and we can do that. Here's my calculator. Let's take 3,600 divided by 80. And we're coming up with 45. And again, to sort of give you an idea of what that means we're going to make 45 desks, and that's going to cost us 8,600. And to sort of recap, if you look at the problem before, when we made 100 desks, it cost us 13,000. When we made 200 desks, it cost us 21,000. When we made 300 desks, it cost us 29,000. If you look how much money we have now. We only have 8,600. That's less than 13,000. So that's telling me that my number I should be coming up with should be less than 100, and it was. We came up with 45.